Welcome. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging, and the elders of other communities who may be here today, both the Wurundjeri where I write and record here in Australia, and the Seminole in the United States where we gather for worship. Thank you again for inviting me to speak today as you gather together in peace, truth, and love. While we are gathering in usual and unusual ways, the joy of being a community present with each other is a blessing, and it breaks boundaries, both geographical as well as theological, and it brings us into a new, more universal way of being together. The two pieces of music that I have chosen today represent the geographical borders of my life, because today I'm going to talk about the in-between, the space between two realities, thresholds. Because we are on one right now, a massive one, and we are being invited to step across. Some of us will, some of us will hold the fort, some of us, perhaps most of us, will hover in between, undecided, striving to be bridges, striving to be both, hoping to be neither. It just all depends. So welcome, and thank you again for having me come back. With humility and courage born of the Unitarian Universalist history, we are called to build beloved community where all souls are welcome as blessings and the human family lives whole and reconciled. With this vision in our hearts and minds, we light our chalice.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Spirits of life, come to us to break down barriers, to widen horizons, to make us less judgmental. Help us see the wider picture and the kinder conclusion, to love, live, and let live, to embrace, and to care. Help us to reach out to our better selves that we may love more and hate less, care more and reject less, that bound together by understanding, we may sustain each other through joy and happiness, through sickness and in health. Help us, Spirit of Life, to be joined in a common purpose of hope, common purpose of fulfillment. Renew us and revive us as we seek common ground for one another. Now is a time for silent reception, and I offer a small glimpse of our backyard here in Australia. Hi, baby. Love is the spirit of the church, and service is the law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. At this time, there would normally be information regarding offering, and while I do suggest that you offer your time and talent and reach out to one another and those with spoken or unspoken need, the practical information for offering will also be made available.
Eesti talv. Maapealne paradiis. Nii rahulik ja vaikne. Meie kodumaa on puhkamas nagu oksas roosike. Palun, ärge teda üles äratage. Ärge teda üles äratage. Aga kevad on varsti tulemas. Päike hakkab paistma ja äratab ta üles.
Welcome. This is my home. I have to put a chair up here with a sign that lets my family know not to come in and ask me a question or tell me about the most recent test snafu. And the cat, of course, is always curious. Her name is Lucy. One of the things in our house, no matter where it happens to be, is what is called an ofrenda. In Mexican culture, this is an ancestor altar, but in our half-Mexican American home, it's where we put our family photos, keeping our loved ones close, surrounded by flowers and food. As my children grew up, we would say goodnight to their grandparents and cousins as they went to bed. It's one way that we keep those in our hearts close, even though we're not. We're headed to the kitchen, but there's a magpie in my backyard. They're not like U.S. magpies. They're more like crows. They're extremely smart. They're beautiful, and they'll actually eat from my hand on occasion. I'm going to try to catch their song. Lucy has delusions of grandeur. We're going to come and take a look at one of our maps. I do love maps, and this one is going to help me make a point about boundaries and spaces between them. And so give me a second while I put the camera down and get it set up so that we can see this comfortably. I originally did this where I was speaking and holding the camera, but I ended up doing a voiceover instead. So Estonia is very far north. I'm coming, I think. Yes, here I am. Estonia is way up here, up by Finland and Russia. And we've traveled further north, up into Rovaniemi, up north of the Arctic Circle. But if you follow the latitude, it's right in the middle of Hudson Bay on the Western Hemisphere. That's pretty far north. It's amazingly dark in the winter. Now, when we go from Estonia, we go all the way down past the end of Africa and over to the furthest south that we've ever lived, in Melbourne. This is almost as far south as it is north in America. There's only a little bit left of South America in terms of land that we haven't been on. These are the I'm trying to figure out what city is south of Melbourne, but that's the furthest south I've ever lived. So these are the geographical boundaries of my life. Home is still in Wisconsin. And even if my house happens to be somewhere else, home is still right there. But as I'm looking at how far east I've traveled or how far west I've traveled, depending on which direction you leave, one of the things that occurred to me was the international dateline. The international dateline makes me think about how much of what we have around us is constructed. Calendars look like neat little boxes of time. Clocks are tidy delineations of time, and life doesn't work like that. At this point, I'm going to no longer be referring to things on the screen. I'm simply going to be continuing. It looks like I'm talking for a while, but that's because I got distracted. And I kept losing my place. That's Maggie. She's our 13-year-old cat, and our little kitten, Hugo, is hiding. We have 3 cats, and they also have broad geographical boundaries. While I make cookies, I'm going to talk a little bit about the space between spaces, not necessarily geographical spaces. It is a little distracting to see me talk because I speak with my hands, but halfway through recording this, I realized that I can't actually do both things at once, and the message needs to be focused. And I kept losing my place. I kept wanting to describe what I was doing as opposed to talking about the boundaries. But don't worry, I stopped talking to the camera pretty soon. Coming into my home, it is certainly an American home. If you were to go into the homes of nearly any of my children's friends, there would be a lot less stuff all around. There's hardly any clutter. Estonian homes are very different because winter people are, and there's a lot of preparation involved in winter, conservation of heat and resources, so the homes look very different. Whether you're in Estonia, Australia, or the United States, one of the things we always gravitate towards is the kitchen. A kitchen can make or break a house. It can't be an afterthought, and nowadays it is usually the literal center. Here in Victoria, we are very limited in our boundaries right now. We are on a stage 4 lockdown with a curfew, and we're not allowed to go more than 5 kilometers from our house. And you might wonder what in the world went wrong for all that to happen. And I can tell you, people died. 170 people so far have died in the state of Victoria, which has 6.5 million people, and 5 million of those are in the city of Melbourne. Yes, you heard me right. 170 people died, and everything except truly essential services like grocery and gas, chemists, which are pharmacies, and doctors closed. My kids are online doing school from home because 170 people died. Our lives are so precious that we have become bounded by the walls of our homes. We break this boundary at our peril, but we're surprised at the things we keep inside of them. Game nights, puzzles, virtual dinner parties, coffee chats, watching shows together but apart, taking a walk. All of these things are things that we've discovered we can do regardless. They've changed. They're definitely different. Even doing church. We're doing it different. Why do we even have work hours when work can occur at literally any hour? I've been on and off my computer all day, once right now, to make cookies. Why do the kids still have to go to school during the usual adult work hours? Mine are teenagers, and having 4 classes with teachers and self-pace hours between 2 and 8 p.m. makes a lot more sense than getting them out of bed by 8. So let me remind you of the map again, just for a second. You remember that international date line? We have this thing called home leave in the Foreign Service. In the military, it's called COT leave, which stands for consecutive overseas tours. Basically, when the federal government orders us from one foreign country to another, we're supposed to go home between them. We invade my parents' home annually, and when we do it between tours, we are technically homeless. Our home, all that stuff, is packed into 7 crates and is en route elsewhere. And the children, my husband, the cats, the dogs, we're all living out of suitcases in my mother's guest bedrooms for 3 months. Shortly after we arrived in Melbourne, we had to delay our home leave between Estonia and Australia, and so, I'll admit it, we gamed the system. We went to Hawaii for Christmas because we have relatives on my husband's side. We departed Melbourne at 4 p.m. on a Friday, and we landed in Hawaii at 10 a.m. on the same Friday. We were all just delighted by that. We thought it was a lot of fun, although going the other way was not as much fun because technically we lost a day. But we didn't really. It was a very long day, chasing the sun, sort of a perpetual dawn. We were enclosed, and it had a different rhythm than a normal day, but it was not difficult. Sleeping wasn't fun, but we did it like infants, not the usual Western way of trying to get a full night's sleep, but a couple hours here, watch a movie, have some food, a couple hours there. What if this time between time that we're in right now, as old things fall away and new things arise, is a way for us to break out of the boxes of our boundaries? My geographical boundaries, far north and far south, have opened up the entire world to me. There's a smidgen above the Arctic Circle that I would have to call terra incognita, and a tip of South America and Antarctica, but the rest is inside the limits of my life. Inside the limits of my children's lives. My kids will have been on 6 of 7 continents before they're 20 if we do this right, assuming we're ever allowed to travel again. But it begs the question, what limits are you setting on your lives? How have you placed limits on others? And how can we take this time between time as an opportunity to change it? How do we do it in a way that's compassionate and caring and cultivating of relationships, large and small? I will leave you with some pondering music. In Australia, it is illegal for anyone except the Aboriginal artists themselves to play their music or create their art. This is presented with the permission of the artists, and there is some lovely scenery to go with it, some of which is a little bit outside of our comfort zones. Gathered in our varied faiths, we give thanks for the blessing of the world community as we share our common dreams. Homes and schools where children thrive, neighborhoods that are safe and clean, cities rich in colors and cultures, an economy where no one is expendable, a beloved community where rich and poor alike have access to the opportunities for dignified and productive lives. Churches, mosques, synagogues, and temples where our hope is to be of service in a hurting world. Enable us to carry forth this prayer into the coming week, turning our thoughts towards charity, our hearts towards justice, and our hands towards the work of Rahu. Hedwig, Paz, Esekapuchala, Mir, Shalom, and peace. Amen. Extinguishing the chalice reminds us of the light into which we awake, and the light that sparkles on the waters. The light that calls the tree forth from the seed and calls the shadow forth. Yes. Blessed are we as we move through the darkness and through the light. Blessed is the dark in which dreams are stirred and are revealed. Blessed is the dark of the earth where the seeds come forth to life, and blessed are the depths of the oceans where no light shimmers, the womb of earthly life. I feel like some of the chaos of my life this week has come into this video, but thank you for having me, and I hope to see you again. The service will conclude with sharing of joys and concerns. Take care, and God's peace. Bye-bye.